All right, welcome to the live show. My name's Steve, K5ATA. Thank you for coming. Today we are having a ham radio buffet, so let's check it out. If y'all would, before we get started, hit that like button, hit subscribe. Helps the channel out, helps new hams find our content. We do appreciate that. Also, there are links down below for my Amazon store. I do make a small little commission out of it, not much, but it does help support the channel and help support our school club that we've got going, as well as a Patreon link down below as well. So we appreciate it. All right, so ham radio buffet. Oh, you know what? I need to go ahead and make this a little more fitting. There we go. All right, so I started out thinking of the ham radio buffet thing. Well, thinking of ham radio kind of like a buffet over the course of the YouTubers Ham Fest a couple weeks ago. It was a great time. There was a lot of information there. A lot of folks that you didn't realize did some of the things they did, and so you kind of get thinking. You're like, wow, I didn't know this guy did this, and Kyle's way into his contesting, and I got to thinking about just all the different ways that a new ham, because I tend to look at everything ham radio through the lens of new hams or younger hams, because that's kind of my focus. So it was kind of like, I started out like thinking Chinese buffet, maybe Pizza Hut lunch buffet, where you have several different varieties on the same little buffet table like we have here. But the more I started thinking and planning, the more it really turned into, yeah, this buffet has seen better days. But my choices were limited on free buffet pictures that had usage rights that were allowed to be reused with modification, because we modified it a little bit and had to get the needs a bigger sneeze guard. Oh, it needs a sneeze guard, period, especially right now during, the human malware virus. Nobody wants to catch the Roni. What's up, Don, David? Thank y'all for coming. Chuck, good to see you. But I started kind of thinking of pockets, I guess, that I could put radio into. We see a lot of folks that, a lot of people don't think of all flavors, I guess, of ham radio as equal or even as valid flavors of ham radio. There are people that still are out there thinking if you don't know Morse Code or CW, then you're not a real ham. Stuff like that, and that kind of gets under my skin. KM4ACK in the house. What's up? Good to have you here. But so I kind of it got under my skin a little bit. So I was like, well, let's kind of break it down. And the plan for this is today I'm going to kind of go over a general overview, I guess, of some of the flavors. And the way I like to do my live streams is I like the audience participation. I like it when, I am definitely not the expert on everything in the room. So I like it when folks that are watching also kind of help out and throw their ideas in and whatnot and add to the conversation. So some of the little categories that we have here, I'm going to shrink my head here for a second so we can see, or at least maybe I'll just slide to this side of the buffet. Okay. Obviously we've got the Fang Gang people. And I call them the Fang Gang folks because those are the ones that tend to get into the hobby right at the beginning. I create a Fang Gang army of my own, kind of, because I teach middle school and I get a bunch of kids licensed, and if you haven't figured out that middle schoolers don't have a lot of expendable cash, I mean, it's a $22 Baofeng is about what a lot of them can get, so that's kind of an option there. And that's one of those things that a lot of other hams look down. Yeah, UV5 Army. A lot of other hams look down on the people that carry a little Baofeng. They don't stop to think about why they might carry it. I mean, I've got several of them at school, but I've got a couple of them. And the nice thing is because if I'm carrying it and I'm going fishing or something, and I heaven forbid I slip in mud or something, fall and ruin a radio, I'd much rather ruin a $22 Baofeng than a couple $300, Anytone or Icom or something like that. So, but that's one of those things that really kind of got me, was the number of people that just talked down about, people who got into the hobby and they were trying to keep it affordable. So that's one of the flavors, or one of the options on the buffet. I couldn't really find a good picture for this other one down here. This is the right below the bow thing. It's just a picture of a tower. And like I said, I was trying to use pictures that usage rights wouldn't get me sued or anything. But the contesting folks, that is kind of a niche all the way to themselves. I mean, it's one of those things that people that are into contesting are really into contesting. Then that's people like me who I casually contest every now and then. And then there's people like Rob who are like, he doesn't log hardly at all, so he doesn't contest because he can't stand logging. And I'm a little scared, Sterling, if you like the buffet, because it's kind of got people drop their stuff in it. But I'm not sure the grease and oil is good for all the radios in there. But then as the people progress in their hobby, they kind of branch off, I guess. So I started thinking of it like a Chinese buffet, but really when you look at it, it's more like, I guess, like a casino buffet. Or somebody said Golden Corral earlier, but Golden Corral is kind of scary. I guess casino buffets can be too, but if you go to a casino buffet, and I don't know if they have these to the folks over across the pond and whatnot, but you walk in the door and it's just this huge thing of, like, I don't know, 8, 9 different ethnicities of food, and you can kind of take your well, it depends on the buffet. Some buffets need hating on 8, but you kind of get overwhelmed, I guess, a little bit. You have, the Italian place and the Chinese place and all these different ethnicities you can go to. And sometimes the quality of food's decent. Sometimes the quality of food's less than decent. But usually the options there are pretty limited. So it's just enough to get you interested in something so that you want to kind of dig deeper. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at the series that I want to do. Is I want it to be something where, each week maybe we'll dive into one of the topics a little bit deeper and see where it goes. So, and there are some really good buffets out there, Chuck. I mean, I've been to several good ones. I've been to several bad ones. But it's a lot of that depends on the time of day. Like I learned long ago, never go to the Chinese buffet at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because it's all been sitting there since 1, kind of thing. And I've never in my life seen a barbecue buffet. I'm not sure where you scored that at, but you need to make sure you let us know. And then this next picture is actually an Anytone 878 radio. Yeah, I do miss the Sizzler buffet, but I think it's been gone forever and a day. The thing with the Anytone, if you ever want to, I guess, strike up an argument at a club meeting with, how do I put this politely, with a bunch of people who still think, everybody should have code to be on the radio and whatnot, bring up something like DMR and, watch their face melt, and you'll hear the comments about, well, if it uses the internet, it's not real radio. And that one, digital voice, DMR, D-Star, Fusion, that stuff, that's a quick one to get under people's skin. And they're like, well, it's not real radio because you're using the internet. And that's kind of another one of those pet peeves. Hang on, I need some lifeblood. Because, they think it's okay to sit there and judge one person for using, this radio, and then they'll turn around and they'll judge somebody for using this radio because, it's a cheap Chinese radio, and they both use RF. The DMR radio obviously uses RF to go to a repeater or a hotspot or something, then pipes into the internet, and then comes out somewhere, and you can talk to people. And then, people just get their, I guess we can say they get their undergarments in a wad for nothing. And that creates kind of a big divide. And when you go to club meetings, you hear a lot of times these hams that are newer hams, and they go to a club meeting, they're like, "Wow, I went to the club meeting, and everybody was a turd nugget. Nobody really wanted to talk to me, and this and that and the other." And a lot of that is, they'll look and see if they're carrying. No, they can't say the 878 is a cheap radio at all, Chuck, but they'll still say it's not real ham radio, and that's what gets me is how can you say it's not real ham radio when the RF goes out of the antenna here and goes to, like I said, a hotspot or repeater or whatever, and it's obviously ham radio. And yeah, Don, that's kind of my point. The people that judge are a lot of times they're the loneliest one in the crowd, but a lot of times there's a little group of them that judge, and some clubs aren't very big. Some clubs are 10, 12 members, and you get 5 or 6 of them that want to sit there and complain that, DMR or D-Star or something's not real radio. Well, obviously, one of the big draws for kids and for newer hams is the ability to talk to people far away. And that's a quick way to do it. I mean, you don't have to have a $200 and some odd Anytone to do it. You can pick up a $75, $80, Retevis radio or something like that and get that done. That's not a bad idea, Ape. I ought to do that. I should get like a bright yellow thing just to carry on. Maybe I'll get like a couple of them of different colors and kind of have like a police tactical belt and have them around me. That'd be kind of funny. But and you're right, David. A lot of times it's one of those. Hang on, I need to change the screen out here. It's you feel like you need new people if those are the kind of people that you're around, but you don't always get to have the choice of, what new people. Let me see if I can make this work. What new people are there? I mean, if you live in a small town, but oops, that was me. If you live in a small town, then that's kind of your choice. I live in an area where our club is growing. I mean, we've got, I'd say we regularly have 15 maybe people show up. I just had 25 kids test for their ham license this last school year. Well, past their license, and so some of them have started to filter in, and then we got Corona, and now nobody can go anywhere. But the club is growing. But what you don't want, and I'm not saying this is my club, I'm just saying it as an example. You don't want people to have their first appearance there be one that they would like, that's not a real radio, and you talk down to somebody, they're not coming back. And a lot of them, especially new hams, they walk in there and that's their impression of the hobby as a whole. And so, that radio promptly goes back on the shelf and that hobby's forgotten. And you lose that person. That person lets their license lapse in 9 years, 11 months, and 15 days, or however long it is. And that's it. That's the end of them. You've lost them. It's kind of the same thing with the Thing Gang people. A lot of people don't seek to try to help those people out because, let's be real, a lot of times those people, they're the prepper crowd and stuff like that, and not all the time, but often that's the radio of choice for them. They want a box full of things and whatnot, and nobody really goes out of their way to, well, not many people really go out of their way to try to help move them along in the hobby, and that's not entirely a ham radio fault. A lot of that's them with, they keep secretive about stuff they have and whatnot. I can respect that, but if you want to grow the hobby, then you have to at least be accepting. You don't have to play, you certainly don't have to go, if you don't like the egg drop soup there behind the ham radio antenna, then don't eat the egg drop soup. But that doesn't mean you need to judge somebody because they like the egg drop soup. That egg drop soup looks kind of rough, but whatever. Got to turn my page because I made notes because I was kind of on a written rant. Another step that I want to look at is mobile ham radio, and that's kind of a second step for a lot of people. They get in, they pick up a radio, and they've got their little thing, or maybe they've got a handheld radio, and if they're really lucky, then they have maybe a radio in the house. Then they want one in the car, assuming they're old enough to drive. My 12-year-olds aren't old enough to drive, but that's the next step that they want, and that's something else I want to take a look at. Partly because I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do my install. This is gonna be going in. Oops, where is it? That's gonna be going in the truck is the VHF UHF radio, but I'm still looking for the HF options and stuff like that. So I want to kind of take a deeper look at that, and then all of a sudden you get to some of the kind of quirky things like the QRP stuff. Some of this stuff crosses over, I guess. For example, QRP. Me personally, I've never really done QRP, not because I don't like it or anything, just because I just haven't. I just hadn't, had that egg drop soup yet. But it kind of crosses over with a lot of the portable operation stuff, which is, the picture kind of the top middle of myself and my child unit out doing POTA stuff. We love doing POTA. It's a great time that we get to spend as a family. Myself, my daughter, my wife, we're all hams. We go. My wife does a lot of the filming, and my daughter usually destroys me on contacts, but I'm good with that. And we have a great time. That's a whole nother avenue to go down. We've never done SOTA. We actually do have a summit here in Mississippi. I think it's like 84 feet, but they somehow called it a summit. We're going to drive down to it one day and jump the guy's fence and climb up on top. Don't worry. He's apparently posted somewhere that it's okay to jump the fence and go up top. Just don't tear anything up. So, but, with the HF stuff, a lot of people, they're still judging there too. It's, if you've got, it's a new high making that contact with 5 watts or less. Yeah. I'll try it one of these days. It's just, I just haven't yet. Yeah, I appreciate you enjoying watching me get beat on POTA, but if I'm picking my battles, I will lose every single one of them to be able to spend that time out there with my kid doing ham radio. She can beat me every time for the rest of our lives, and I'm good with that. So, and it'd be the same thing, with my students at school or whatever. If I'm out there and I get destroyed, they get more contacts. That's a good thing because that means they're out there, they're on the radio. So I'm just happy my daughter enjoys doing it. She enjoys beating me a little bit too much sometimes. She had plans, if she wasn't ahead of me apparently, to go back out and hook things back up on this last trip and get the last one while I was packing up. But anyhow, the HF thing, you still have a lot of people, and I don't want to lump anybody into one group because that's the very thing I'm trying to tell people not to do. But a lot of people still sit there and say things like, if you're on ham radio and you don't have code, you're there, you don't really deserve to be there, yada yada yada. I'm just like, there's just no place for that in radio anymore. The hobby's changing. If people don't, adapt with it and go, then the hobby dies. So it can either change and grow, or it can kind of fester like a wound and die. And I'm of the opinion that everybody kind of needs to change with it and try different things at the buffet. So you don't have to like them, but like for example, Don, you said I really should try the QRP thing. Okay, challenge accepted. I'll turn the radio down to 5 watts and I'll see what I can do just because. So I've never done it before. So after the stream ends, I'll tune it on, turn it on, and tune it up and see if I can get anybody. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will. I don't know. But I do have a couple little QRP kits that I bought for the kids at school. We were going to put together. Never got to put them together because we got coroned out, but I still have them. I may throw one of those together just to see. Turn the page. Okay, another one is kit building. And I think T.O. is pretty big into kit building stuff. I know he does a lot of stuff with, old Commodore 64 computers and whatnot, but stuff like that. But kit building is one of those things that a lot of people don't ever expose people to. They just kind of leave it out. And I'm not sure why. Hang on. That's getting empty fast, so It's a good thing I brought a refill. Yeah, baby. Alright, so, kit building is one of those things that, if you think about it, for a new ham or for, especially for kids, I mean, one of the very first things I did with the kids is after we got a couple chapters into the ham radio or the ARRL licensing manual, I got those little FM radio receiver kits from Elenco, and we started putting stuff together because if you ever want to hook somebody into something, let them build something and let it work. I was smart enough that I bought several extra. I actually bought, gosh, I think I got 27 or 30 of those things. And, I put them in partners because they were still 20 something bucks a pop. And, I let them just go to town on it. A lot of people don't ever let anybody build anything. They especially don't let kids. I mean, fill a classroom up with prepubescent or just pubescent kids and give them a soldering iron and see what happens. But, as soon as they start getting things to work, and the radio itself doesn't even have to work, they get something and it actually solders in play. They're like, whoa, that actually worked. The look on their faces when they turned it on and it actually came alive, and they were listening to FM radio on this little gadget and I've got one around here somewhere. I should have dug it out, but there's no telling. I've brought a bunch of junk home from school to mess with. But that goes a long way, and that's not just something for kids. It's, you get a new ham, you get them, teach them how to build something, teach them how to solder, stuff like that, because that's a skill that a lot of people don't have anymore. I've got a good friend of mine that he's over at that Natural State Overland, and he's in this big overland off-roading group, and that's another series we're working on is ham radio and how it fits into the four-wheel drive community, and he and I are filming some of that stuff. But when he started out, he can fabricate all kinds of stuff, but he's never soldered or anything like that. So that's one of those things that, he's like, well, how do I do this? It's going to be, no, we're going to show you how to do this. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to step you through the process, and, that way you've learned something. And then when it works, he's like, sweet. And then you've hooked him one other way. Trying to get somebody look to a soldering can be intimidating. It can be intimidating, Tio. And so actually what I did with that was I had a bunch of old PCs that the school district they were just storing them out in this shed thing out back, and they'd been sitting out there forever. So basically I went out there and I just gutted them for parts, motherboards and stuff like that, these things were so old they're not good for anything. And basically I just taught the kids how to solder on old stuff like that. We'd unsolder stuff and then solder stuff on, and let them mess up on something that doesn't really matter and get used to it. And like with kids, I learned. I didn't know right away. I had one kid that he had the soldering on. He's like, wow, look, I touched the solder to the tip, and all of a sudden it disappears. And so next thing you know, an entire roll of solder is gone, and he's got a little lump of melted solder below there. He's like, that was really cool. Well, okay. But he ended up soldering some stuff on there, and he had a good time, but he just burned most of it up. But it's okay. That just goes back to the don't be judgmental when somebody's doing something, and if they do mess something up, use it as a learning experience. But kit building overall is probably one of the most overlooked, in my opinion, ways to try to get folks hooked into the hobby. If you're going to try to hook people into the hobby with just one facet of it, it's easy to become bored. I mean, you get your hooks in several different ways, and I don't want to make it look like we're trapping them into it or anything, but you get them interested in several different things. Then, when one of them gets a little bored, okay, well, I'm kind of tired of contesting right now. Hey, I'm going to mess with this. I mean, if I could show you my shack right now, I mean, it's covered. Trust me, my wife tells me all the time, I really need to clean this up. But it's because I have like 18 different things I'm kind of messing with at the same time. And, it's like, well, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this, and I just don't have the hours to do it all. So they're all kind of in different stages of completion. But the more areas that somebody gets exposed to that they try, the more likely they are to stick with the hobby or to try to do something new, or even more importantly, or to share it with somebody else. And that's a good point. So you have to meet people where they are, and when you get somebody that's brand new, they're at that beginning point. I mean, that's where they are. So you demonstrate it to them, and let them play with it, have a good time with it. Can't really see the picture because, well, it ended up smaller than I thought it was going to. But that next to my daughter and I doing the POTA thing is the CW paddle. Now, I've been licensed for 26, coming up on 27 years now. And I did not get my general until, I don't even remember what year it was. I still had to take the code test for it, but it was only 5 words a minute. And I learned code at 5 words a minute, and I was good with it. I say I was good. I was good enough to get my 1 minute of solid copy to pass my test. I've had entirely one QSO on CW, and that was some fella down in Cuba years and years and years ago. I mean, right after I got my general, I jumped on that. I wanted to try it, so I did it. And that's the thing is, a lot of these hams will sit there and say you're not a real ham if you don't know code. But these are the same people that, as soon as somebody says, "Hey, I'm learning code," all of a sudden they become gracious and accepting. So it's like, "Oh, you're learning it." Then all of a sudden that 40, 50 word a minute guy is willing to try to slow down for you. And that's kind of where, I guess, that's the attitude that everybody has to have with everything in the hobby. It's not just, I need to go watch your code video I'm building. And that's one of those things that I've got a bunch of Arduinos at school, and that's one of the things that, like I said, a bunch of projects in the works that I'd like to build. So yeah, if you get that built, let me know, man. I want to take a look at it. But I'd appreciate seeing that, Steve. So, but anyway, like I was saying, is everybody kind of needs to be that accepting on everywhere. I mean, I have 12-year-old kids. They watch a YouTube video or something where they see somebody calling CQ, and while I generally have the time as soon as their call sign posts to have them step outside and make it their first contact on the repeater, if somebody's not teaching them that, then they're going to pick up their radio, or the radio I hand out like candy. And oops, apparently I left that on. That battery's dead as a hammer. And they're going to key it up and just start calling CQ on it. Now, hopefully, the people that hear it are going to be gracious and be like, "Oh, this must be a new person," and just kind of have a contact with them and go from there. But unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is they end up getting berated over how you shouldn't use call CQ on a repeater and this and that and the other. And just like earlier when the people walked into the ham radio club with the Baofeng, the radio goes home, goes on the shelf, doesn't bother putting it in the charger because he knows he's never going to use it again. And that's the end of it, because their first contact, somebody yelled and screamed at them and berated them over nothing. So, just try to be gracious with that stuff. And then I think I might have to hide something here. Yeah. All right. So up here at the top that's actually a PSK31, if I remember correctly, signal. Now, if all of these other things are like different little buffet tables at the casino buffet, okay, the digital modes on HF are more like a Baskin Robbins 31 flavors kind of thing. I mean, there are just, when you look at the list of those things, oh my lord! I mean, there's a ton of them out there, and that's one of the things that I'm working on for the webpage is looking at how to identify the different signals and different calling frequencies and stuff like that, because that's another way to hook a lot of these younger hams in. Is
you're tying, data in your computer into the radio, and I'm sending traffic, be it email or be it, just tactical information or whatever, through the airwaves, and they're getting it in text on the other side. That's kind of where we need to focus, as far as I'm concerned, with some of these younger guys. Now, I mean, am I saying to force them into that? No, absolutely not. There are some people that, even at the ripe old age of 14 years old, they want to learn how to, build old school radios like, they read about or whatever. Just up the road in Memphis. Hey, Jim Greer. That's cool. That's the name of the admiral in the Hunt for Red October. I don't suppose you're the admiral from the Hunt for Red October, but cool. Yeah, are you in the club up there? I'm just in. I actually go to the Oxford Club down here, so yeah, I'm only less than an hour from you. But get it. Where was I before I got? Oh, HF Digital stuff. So, yeah, make it so that they have several different options out there with HF Digital. That's just, I mean, it's just cool. I don't. If you've never tried it, that's kind of the challenge to you, is give it a shot. It doesn't take a lot of extra equipment most of the time. If you've got the 7300 that everybody seems to have, but I haven't gotten approval from the wife yet. Apparently you can just plug and play that bad boy. But even if you don't, let's see if I can get this thing out of here without making a hot mess of my wiring here. Well, I'll just make a hot mess of the cabling. That little dude right there, it doesn't cost much. I forget what I paid for it, but it's little Signalink, and that works. I've actually also got, there's a guy on eBay, don't remember his call sign, makes the little Easy Digi or something like that it's called, and he makes these little cable adapters. So you can get on the air with HF Digital modes really, really easily. But there's a learning curve to that, and when somebody starts asking those questions, don't be that guy that's like, well, that's FT8. That's not real. I mean, you're not even having a QSO. It's like, well, yeah, I kind of am, just because I'm not interested in, asking the person. So about 150 with cables. Yeah, I don't remember what I paid for it, but I know that the I've got one down here. Hang on, it's in one of my mini storage crates, whatever that other company's called. But pardon the noise as I pop that open. Yeah, Easy Digi. These guys. Uh-oh. My camera froze. Not sure what happened there. Hang on, let me try to stop it and restart it. Is it just frozen on me, or is it frozen for y'all too? Yep, it's frozen for y'all too, so hang tight one sec. See if I can fix this real quick. That's what I get for pulling boxes out. So, let's see. Sometimes it gets kind of cafarful here. See if I can add that back real quick. Hang tight. Alright, add. Y'all fixed to see me without green screen here, but that'll be alright. Let me
fix that there for a sec. Hey, we can sing. What do you want to sing, Tio? We all live in the yellow submarine, the yellow submarine, the yellow submarine. Type. There we go. Alright, so we're back live again. So, the rhythm of the code. Alright, so this is that little easy digi I was talking about. And I don't remember what I paid for this. This was actually for that FT897. But it was under $50 if I remember right. So, yeah, all the excitement of live TV. I'm just happy I was able to get it back up quickly. So, like I said, I must have bumped the cable when I pulled the box out. So, we'll live with it. But anyway, like I was saying, be the person that when they say, hey, they want to get into this, don't be the one that's like, oh, you want to get into FT8? That's such a waste of time. You don't even get to talk to people. Be the one that instead, even if you don't know, is, I think I was able to, but you could buy it as either a kit or already built. And, I bought this thing a while ago. And when I bought it, I ended up getting it already assembled just because I wasn't comfortable with my soldering then. And, now, I'm perfectly comfortable with soldering. I wouldn't want to solder some of the little bitty things that, like, I imagine Tio and some of y'all do when you're doing little computer boards and whatnot. But as far as anything that I'm doing now, I'm fine with it. So, but back then, even then, that's a less expensive way to get on there. So, as far as that, what are some of the other topics that, or I guess flavors or food bars at the buffet that y'all think are out there? And I agree, Jim. Any door is a good door, but you want it, once they get in the door, my thing is I want them to have several options, and we need to, as hams in general, not spout the negativity that a lot of people do. Because there are a lot of people out there that, depending what website you go to, and I'm not going to say any of them, but some of them you post something about, somebody might post a question on how do you do this, and their response is, read the stinking manual. And it's like, well, that was helpful. Fox hunts are something that I want to do, and actually, we thought we had a line on a fox, but I'm gonna have to. I didn't say that to you. I didn't say a word. But instead, I'm gonna have to buy one. So, like I said, it's just one more thing I have to buy for to get things going. But the list just grows every day. So I'm hoping to get a little bit of budget out of the school next year. We'll see. They've kind of already hinted not to count on it though, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, fox hunts are definitely one that, and that's one that, well, I've been on several fox hunts because the club I was in when I lived in Dallas, they did them all the time. And that was a great way to get people into the hobby. So that's a good point. There are Raspberry Pi options out there, and I'm sure I haven't looked specifically on Jason's KM4ACK's channel for a fox that's out there for a Raspberry Pi, but I imagine if anybody's got info on one, it'd be him. So yeah, if you've not checked his channel out too, you definitely need to check his out. Moon bounce. Now I've never done moon bounce, Sandra. Have you done moon bounce before? My understanding is it takes a fair bit of power to get it up there and out and back again. And yeah, it's the same thing. I would love to try it. I guess the thing is, if you've got a station that's capable of doing some of these things, show it off. Throw a YouTube video out there doing it, because there's some of this stuff that there's just not enough information out there for some of it. And if somebody's got a station that they do moon bounce stuff, then throw the video out there, but don't just throw the video out there of it working all the time, because if
somebody puts a video out and it's like, hey, look, I'm going to do moon bounce for the first time. And everybody knows how YouTube is. We can edit everything after the fact and make it look, pristine and perfect. But if you don't ever show any of the frustrating hair pulling out steps as you build up to getting it successful, then the person that's trying it, when theirs doesn't work as quickly as yours did, all that does is increases the frustration. And that's kind of, I teach school for a living, so that's, you hit a point where you want to challenge them, but you don't want them overly frustrated to the point where they give up. And so I guess it's finding that sweet spot. So, well, yeah, 100 watts is nothing. I mean, I would think, though, that from what I understood, it took more than that to be easily successful. But I could be wrong. I don't know. ISS APRs Digipeater. I'm going to have to learn about that one. I mean, obviously, I know the ISS, you can hit it and talk to the folks up there when they're on schedule and whatnot. And I guess I've heard there's an APRs Digipeater, but I've never played with it. I have played with APRs a long time ago, which that's another thing. I really don't have any excuse because the Anytone's got digital APRs built in. The D-Star ICOM radio apparently has, what do they call it, DPRS, I think, which, I've never used D-Star, so I'm about to learn how to use D-Star and throw some videos out about that. And I'm looking forward to doing those because it's going to be one of those, from the brand new newbie kind of person, how to do D-Star. So I've done it with an HT antenna, but do it much better with an arrow. And yeah, there was a dude at our club that was going to give me an arrow antenna. Yeah, we've got tape measure Yankees, but he was going to give me an arrow antenna because he wanted to get into it, and he just didn't. And then we got corona'd out, and I hadn't seen him in 3 months now. But yeah, we actually have all the materials to build tape measure Yankees, but just hadn't gotten it yet. So, no D-Star. And there aren't any D-Star repeaters right here either. In fact, Jim, if you're still in here, I know there's a couple D-Star repeaters that are listed in Memphis, but I don't know if they're actually still on the air. I'm going to try to say this name right, Faisal. Yeah, I teach kids to get licensed as well. I'm fortunate. I have 2 class periods of the day where I get to teach ham radio to kids. So the way it works is I have a class of kids that I get when they're in 6th grade, and then I get those same kids back in 8th grade. So when I have them in 6th grade, it's an elective for them, and it's like a intro to STEM kind of course. And so with them in there, we do a lot of things, some 3D printing and stuff like that. But the big focus is amateur radio because there's just so much to it that we can get, STEM kind of stuff into. And then I get those kids back again in 8th grade. Now, I just got the okay last year to teach these 2 classes. Up until then, it was kind of, I taught it kind of under the radar and built it in different ways. But last year, my principal was like, yeah, go for it. And so, the kids that I get in 8th grade next year, they don't have their technician license yet. They've never been taught any of it. So they'll get taught their technician license material next year. And then the kids I get the following year, well, over half of the kids in that class have their tech license. So I'm going to have to divvy it up and start doing some general stuff or some, Morse code stuff. Not that was a letter, that would just be hitting things. But and stuff like that to help it build. That's why, like that little oscillator from MFJ, I'm looking forward to trying to get some more of those in the classroom with some earphones, because that'll drive me crazy, so that they can start learning Morse code as well. Because it's like I said on my video yesterday, you can teach somebody to copy Morse code, but you can't really send it that well. And I mean, a kid wants to hear it. They want to be, they want to figure out how to tap out something and tell their friend across the room whatever they want to tell them. So, Jim, I just saw your message. Not into digital yet, but I know one of the guys who runs the digital club in Memphis. Well, I'll reach out to him. And like I said, I have never done D-Star at all. And so, and I guess I'll find out when I try D-Star that first time. I'm sure I'm going to screw something up, and we're going to hope that the people that are on the other end of the string, so to speak, we'll just see. Are they going to be like, oh my gosh, you don't know how to use this, or are they going to be supportive? Because I'm going to probably need a little bit of support. I will say though, that radio, I just opened it up yesterday, I guess, day before maybe, and ICOM did a good thing with putting in this little cheat sheet card. So that makes life a whole lot easier than the 93-page manual. Remote control the drone with a ham radio yeah, that's another thing but drones start to get expensive, and keep in mind it's a public school, so my budget is normally very limited. So whatever it is I end up having to go with each year is going to be, I spent pretty much my entire budget on license manuals, and overspent my budget on the kits for them to build and stuff like that, and then ended up having to buy obviously a lot of it myself. So, but yeah, let me scribble those down. I'm gonna put the drones is something I've had drones, but I've not had ham radio controlled drones before. Even though I've known forever that people control remote control vehicles with ham radio, I've just never done it. So that's another thing. I wonder, anybody know of a good YouTube channel out there that does that kind of stuff? If so, throw it out there, man. Let's get the guy some subs if it's any good, because that's a channel I'd be interested in learning from. So, but anything else that y'all want to see on the buffet? Like I said, my plan is over the next several weeks to kind of step through some of these things. And like I said, I don't profess to be the expert on all of them. I'm hoping that we can get all of us having conversations like we are now in the chat, and then everybody learns from it. Maybe have some people who are better at some things than others on some of this. Maybe they can zoom in or something and help give us some information. But y'all let me know what else there is that you want to see. You can scroll back through the chat, see what I missed. That's awesome. My daughter has her tech, but I'm trying to teach her the topics for the general. Okay, well, that's not bad. I mean, my daughter, she first tested for her technician. She was young. I mean, she was in 4th grade maybe, and she missed it by a question. And so, she gave up for a few years, and then she got back into it this last year and got her license. And she got her technician in, I think she got it in December. She and I went and did a POTA activation quickly thereafter. I mean, it was just like maybe the next weekend or 2 weekends later, and she absolutely could not stand that she had to use my call sign for the POTA activation. She's like, but I'm making the contacts, I want to use mine. I'm like, gotta upgrade. And so she studied hard, and the January club meeting she upgraded. So, and now she kicks my butt every time. Although she only kicked my butt by one this last time. So I coulda, woulda, shoulda had her. But let's see what else we missed up in here. And you're right, Tio. Learning code with a friend is much faster. I mean, Jerica and Leah, Tio's daughter, have hit it off, and Alana as well. By the way, Tio, they tell you they convinced Alana to get her tech license. So just so you know, they've committed you to going to the Hamfest next year. I don't know if you knew that yet or not, but you're going. But yeah, and they do it through the Long Island CW Club. So that's another thing. If you want to learn something new, find people who are willing to go there with you and have a buddy. I mean, they spend, goodness, I couldn't begin to count the number of hours they spend on Zoom. Now, granted, I know it's not on Morse Code, but they'll Morse Code for a while, then act like silly little girls for a while and whatnot. But yeah, it took a while to get Alana in the game, but she's there, so that'll be cool. The three of them will probably get in trouble. So yeah, we're hoping that Huntsville, by the way, I'll go ahead and throw that out there. We're hoping the Huntsville Ham Fest happens this year, Huntsville, Alabama. obviously, Jim, you're just up in Memphis. That's not too far for y'all. But from Jason talked to the folks. Who was it he was talking to when we learned that? Help me out. DX Engineering, maybe? Gigaparts out there. And he was talking to them in Huntsville, and he was like, hey, is the Hamfest going to happen? And from what they said, they've talked to the powers that be in the city, and Huntsville is going to happen this year. It's not until August anyway, so you might not have noticed this, but we're kind of Hamfest free. So that one hopefully will have a huge turnout. So anybody here who wants to go, they're talking now. She's supposed to be in there doing something for me, little turd nugget. So, but anybody that wants to go, hey, head on down. I know several of the folks in the YouTubers bunch are going to try to be there. I know Jason Ham Radio 2.0 is going to try to be there. Josh even said he's got a plane ticket. He might be able to get out there from Ham Radio Crash Course. So, but that about wraps it up. Unless y'all have anything else that y'all want to see get added onto the buffet, and then next week we're gonna kind of take a look into a deeper dive into one of those topics there. So hopefully going to have. Yeah, I hope so too, Chris. That'd be cool, man. But any questions or anything, drop it in the comments below. I appreciate y'all hanging out. Appreciate you sticking with me when my camera froze. It didn't take too long to get sorted out, but the wonders of live streaming. Stuff happens. Y'all take care, and we hope to see you on the air. 7-3.